want to start thinking about, there are some signs that you have that you just know you are going to have a bad day. Just like there are little things, there are annoying things, there are just things that happen, you're like, you know what, today is not my day. When you get to my age, you start waking up, you have like a crick in your neck, and you're like, oh, my neck's all messed up, or you didn't sleep good, you tossed and turned all night, and you're like, oh man. Old man. I know, you guys know I'm almost going to go up a number. I'm 29, I'm going to be 30 on Sunday. So I'm almost to that point of like, oh man, you're going into another decade. So I'm getting close to that. But that's one of the things that I can kind of tell is going to be a bad day. Another thing, and this is, again, it's just kind of little, but when Catherine likes to eat breakfast in the morning, sometimes she likes to sit in her seat, but sometimes she likes to sit with me. And so today we had Fruit Loops. And whenever I eat Fruit Loops, I'm a lot more clean than she is at eating her Fruit Loops. And typically if I've already gotten dressed for the day and she comes and sits on my lap, I'm gonna get like milk and Fruit Loops on my shirt and on my pants, all this kind of stuff. And it's just like, oh man, isn't that annoying? Sometimes that can happen, which is a bummer. You can also tell, like, if you wake up, I know some of you have done this, so I'm not gonna make you raise your hand because you may not want to admit it about yourself, but some days you go to school and then you go to the bathroom and you're like, wait a second, I put my underwear on backwards. And you're like, it just messes up your whole day and makes things that should be easy a lot harder because things just aren't the way it's meant. There's just like little things sometimes that happen in my life. Okay, I appreciate that. Some people will admit that happens to them too. Is anybody else like you feel like I've got something little that kind of like, if this little thing happens, I know it's a sign of a bad day. Anybody else have something like that? Something that just kind of gets over the
Someone
day?
takes my parking space at work.
Oh, someone takes your parking space at work.
That's the worst. It ruins my entire
Right? It just kind of like throws you off. Man, it's a bummer, right? Now, overall, like, if I think about the things that annoy me and make me have a bad day, I'm like, okay, those are so little. And if I just focus on that, I'm just being old and grouchy and all those kinds of things. So I don't need to do that. So I'm thankful that what I think of is a bad start to my day for a lot of people. It's still overall pretty good. But today we're going to talk about Joseph. And Joseph, he doesn't just have like a minor inconvenience. He doesn't, wake up, put his robe of many colors on backwards, and it's kind of a bummer. No, he has one of those days that you'll never forget because it's such a horrible and very bad day. So we are in Genesis chapter 37, verse number 12. Here's going to be our big idea for today. Even through deadly envy, self-interest, and deception, God accomplishes his plan. Even through envy and self-interest and deception, all these things that are going to happen to Joseph, going to happen and be exhibited by the brothers, they work and they do all of this evil, and yet God, in his will and in his plan, accomplishes everything he needs to. So Genesis chapter 37. If you remember, we could do, how about a little bit of trivia from last week? So Joseph is the son of, do you remember what his mom's name was? Anybody remember? Say it.
Rachel.
Rachel, perfect. How many kids does Rachel have? 2. She has Joseph and she has, remember the other one? Benjamin. Perfect. What happens to Rachel when she gives birth to Benjamin? She dies. Now, so Rachel is kind of special. Why is Rachel so special?
Favorite.
She's the favorite, exactly. Joseph is special because he is also the favorite. That's good. How many brothers does Joseph have altogether?
Like 52.
Almost. It feels like that, right? He's got 11 from how many different women? So we have Rachel.
4.
From 4, right? 2 sisters and then 2 servant wives. And so you've got the making for a really weird and really wacky family dynamic. And these brothers are filled with envy and jealousy and hatred against Joseph. And it's going to come up right here. So he had a dream. He had 2 dreams last week in which he had a dream where he was like a wheat stalk and 11 other wheat stalks bowed to him. And his brothers hated him for that because they kind of felt that was God saying to them that Joseph was going to be the leader of them all. There's another dream. The sun, the moon, the stars, they all bow down to him. And it's a picture that his mom, his dad, his brothers are going to bow down to him. So Joseph is someone who seems bound and destined for greatness. that great and amazing things are going to happen to him, and the brothers cannot stand him for it. Can't stand him for it. So Genesis chapter 37, verse number 12 is where we're going to pick up as we finish out this chapter. God's word says, "Now his brothers went to pasture their father's flock near Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, 'Are not your brothers pasturing the flock at Shechem? Come, I will send you to them.' And he said to him, 'Here I am.' So he said to them, 'Go now, see if it's well with your brothers and with the flock, and bring me word.' So he sent him from the valley of Hebron and came to Shechem. And a man found him wandering in the fields, and the man asked him, 'What are you seeking?' 'Well, I'm seeking my brothers,' he said. 'Tell me, please, where are they pasturing the flock?' And then the man said, 'They've gone away, for I've heard them say, let's go to Dothan.' So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan." So this very first section, Jacob sends Joseph to his brothers. The 10 brothers, Benjamin's probably not with them, are out in the fields. They say in Shechem. Joseph is at home. Jacob says, "Go and check on them." So we have a few questions. Why is Joseph home? Why was he not out in the fields with them? But then you have a good second question. Why would Jacob want an update on them? And why would Jacob send Joseph? Certainly Jacob would have known that his brothers hated him. They said, remember, he couldn't even speak peaceably to them. They couldn't even say a nice word to Joseph, and yet he sends them out to go and find him. 3 times it mentions this place called Shechem. And for us, that may not mean much, but if you were rewind back to Genesis 34, I told you there's 12 brothers in this family, but there's also one sister. One sister named Dinah. She's a daughter of Leah. And you can imagine being one girl with 12 brothers, what that would kind of be like. So Jacob and his family, they're kind of moving along. They come to the town of Shechem at this time, and she wants to go and meet the women of the town. Dinah does. And as Dinah goes out, she catches the eye of the prince of this city or town. The prince takes her, and he wants to keep her, and he sleeps with her. And then she doesn't come back. They're there. Jacob hears about this. He's obviously very upset. The brothers hear about this. They're incredibly upset that this random guy at this town would take their sister, sleep with her when they're not married, and then say, "Look, I want to keep her and not give her back." So the brothers, they come up with a plan, deceitfully. They have the men go through a procedure that's going to cause them some soreness. And then 3 days later, when they're still recovering, Simeon and Levi, the second son and the third son, go into the town of Shechem and kill all the men, take the women, take the children, take their flocks and everything else and all their treasure. And so when you hear Shechem, you're thinking there's something that happened really important here. That they went and they killed all these people there in Shechem. And astoundingly, Jacob's reaction is, well, what's everyone going to think about us? Like, we're trying to make new friends and make new neighbors. And Jacob's actually upset at the brothers for killing everyone. And that was his first concern, not necessarily for Dinah. And so they get her back. But it just reminds us, as we're hearing Shechem, 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 the brothers are capable of great violence. Hebron to Shechem is probably 50 miles away or so. They're not quite in Shechem. They go a little bit farther to Dothan. About 60 miles away, probably here to the other side of the river, Belleville, Illinois. So they're out of Jacob's oversight. They can't be with them. They're kind of far away, and Jacob sends Joseph on this long trip by himself. Jacob sends Joseph to the brothers, and then things get a little heated. Here we go. Verse 18. They saw him from afar, this is Joseph, before he came near to them, and conspired against him to kill him. And they said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer," or a master dreamer. "Come now," verse 20, "let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we will say a fierce animal has devoured him, and we will see what will become of his dreams." But when Reuben heard it, he rescued him out of their hands, saying, "Let's not take his life." And Reuben said, "Shed no blood, throw him into this pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him, that Reuben might rescue Joseph out of the hands to restore him to his father." So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore. They took him and threw him in the pit, and the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. So the brothers are consumed with this deadly envy, this deadly jealousy against Joseph. They see him from a really far off, singing to him, and unmistakably they would have recognized it was him because he had this special, ornate, beautiful coat of many colors, and their hearts are just reminded of how he was the favorite, how they had never gotten something like that, and they're ready to act decisively. You see the sarcasm in their voice, right? Verse 19. Here comes this dreamer. That dream had gotten under their skin. They were still thinking about it all this time later. This dream that Joseph had, that one day all of them were going to bow to him, that he was going to be the prince, that he was going to be the chief of all of them. And then they say, look at this dreamer. If we take him and kill him, they say, what will become of his dream? Let's see what happens to his dream when all of us gang up together, kill him, dump him in a pit, and we won't bow down to him at all. We have our own plan, and it's almost unimaginable to see what they've done. So they have this jealousy that would take them to such great depths and such great lengths to do this. So we can just pause for a moment here and remind ourselves how destructive envy and jealousy can be in our hearts. I mean, you think how wild that is to have this idea. They're going to kill their brother, someone they've grown up with, flesh of their flesh, someone who their father loved deeply, but they had allowed their hearts to be so filled with hatred and envy, and they just, as they got together, they built it, they fostered it upon one another. They let it gnaw at them just on and on constantly. We cannot allow ourselves to be ruled by jealousy. It tells us, it will push us to think we're not enough because we may not have the talent somebody has. Or your jealousy may lead you because you may not think, yeah, I'm just not as attractive or as beautiful or as smart or as talented. And when we harbor up that envy and that jealousy in our hearts, it shouldn't surprise us when it works its way out and we lash out against others. So when we feel envious or jealous of other people, we don't want to fan that flame. We want to seek to try and stop it. We want to make sure that we don't allow that to overrule us. So if Instagram makes you feel jealous and envious of people, set time limits, delete it, get rid of it, whatever it may be. Stop the account that makes you want more. Jealousy makes your life worse and worse, never makes your life better, and makes you farther from God. It's a restless evil. So they're consumed with this jealousy. And then you have this brother Reuben. Reuben speaks up. He has his own plan. He says, well, let's not kill him. What was his plan? What did Reuben tell him to do? Yeah. Throw him in the pit. Then Reuben was going to let all the brothers go. He was going to come back. He was going to get Joseph. Does anybody remember? I told you that Reuben did something really wacky last week. It's kind of awkward. I probably shouldn't make you say it because it's that awkward.
Make him say it. No.
Yeah. So remember Reuben? I told you of this really weird family. The oldest one, Reuben, slept with one of the servants, so like the mom of his half-brothers. That was Reuben. So if you're thinking like, oh, Reuben's such a great guy, you got to remember, this is the same Reuben. Like, Reuben's got some weird stuff going on. He was trying to do that so he could have like this power grab. So why does Reuben want to save Joseph? Maybe it's to get back on his dad's good side, because obviously what he did would get him on his dad's bad side, believe it or not. And it may be that, maybe he feels like the responsibility as the older brother to try and save him, but he actually has a good plan, and they follow his request. Okay, we'll just take his robe, we'll throw him in the pit, and we'll leave him down there. So this is where they end. And it's certain that Joseph's going to die. This cistern would be kind of shaped like a bottle. It would have a really narrow opening, and it would open up kind of at the bottom. So you couldn't climb back up or get back through. Joseph was bound to die. And that's a horrible way to die. It says there was no water in it. No food, no water. He's left here to die. Read in verse 25. Then they sat down to eat. You see the brothers, they're just callously self-interested. Here they go, they throw their brother into the pit, no food, no water, no shelter, no protection. And then they sit down to have lunch. It just shows you how their hearts have been so corrupted, so callous, that they can do something so horrible and not even be concerned. They could just eat their meal in peace. So they see a caravan coming up of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Judah says, verse 26, what profit is it if we kill our brothers and conceal his blood? Come, let's sell him. Let not our hand be on him. He's our brother. He's our own flesh. The brothers listened to him. And verse 28, they drew Joseph up, lifted him out of the pit, sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. So Judah says, what do we gain by killing him? We would actually be responsible, but if we just sell him, we could get money. And that's a good thing for a shepherd. They would probably get 8 shekels a year for working. They were going to get 20 shekels here in this transaction. So that's a pretty good bonus that they can all split up. And they're just driven by this profit. Man, we can get something out of our brother. And you just think, again, how far and how dark have their hearts gotten? They're not only willing to kill their brother, but also they're willing to sell him. Deuteronomy 24:7 tells us that if you were to be one who would sell your brother, that is a crime worthy of death. That's what the law would tell us later. You can't just sell someone in slavery. That's something that would actually kill you. And the brothers were absolutely willing to do that. They were not going to bow down to him, but in their attempt to get rid of him and crush their dreams, they did exactly what God needed them to do to make his dreams come true. It's a demonstration of how the brothers are doing exactly what they want to do. They don't want to kill him. They don't want the blood on their hands. It's much easier. We'll get money. He can go to Egypt. We won't see him again. And yet, this is exactly God's plan. We see these brothers just callously self-interested, trying to benefit themselves in it. Fourth thing you see, the brothers, they're deceitfully tricky. They sell him, they get him off. And then Reuben comes back to the pit, where he finds the brothers who sold Joseph. He tears his clothes apart. He begins to mourn, and he's really upset about it. Now, Reuben, you could maybe say Reuben could have said, guys, what are we doing? Let's not kill him. Let's not sell him. But honestly, if they're at this point already, they probably wouldn't have listened to Reuben. So I don't think Reuben's plan was bad to put him in the pit, come back later, and rescue him. It's an okay plan. And his plan is to restore Jacob. He knows his dad would be devastated if Joseph was killed. This is his favorite son, the one he gave all this stuff to. And Joseph has a good plan with a good goal, actually. But he loses control of that situation, and his plan can happen. I think for us, I think there's a good lesson here. That there are times when we can make good plans with good goals and with good motives and ideally good outcomes, but God may not always let our good plans come true, and God may have something else. God could accomplish his goal in other ways. Reuben, he was devastated when his plan didn't work out. And rightly so. His brother was gone. And some of you may feel like, in my life, things have not gone how I wanted. If we just hadn't moved, man, or if I didn't have to change schools, if my parents could have stayed together, if I could have gotten with that girl or that boy, if I could have went to that school and done that, man, my life would have been so much, and I feel like, God, all the pieces would have worked out. It would have been so perfect and so good in my mind. And we can be devastated when it doesn't work out, but we have to realize in this passage and in others that when we give our plans to God, God can accomplish his plans in even greater ways. I remember when I was in high school, and I was thinking about, man, where do I want to go to school and what do I want to do? I knew I wanted to study Bible and do ministry and all these things. And there was a school at Boys College I really would love to go to. I could have graduated faster. I would have loved being there. It was my dream to go there. But just when I looked at all the numbers and looked at it, it didn't make sense. It didn't make sense for me to do that. So I went to MOBAP instead. So I still got to study Bible, still got to serve in my church, which was great. And looking back, I think in high school when I didn't really want to go to Moab because, man, I had this good plan that I was going to go to this school in Kentucky and I would have had a really good goal. I felt like it would have been me pursuing God's calling in my life and it would have been obedient in so many different ways. But that wasn't the story that God had for me. And by me staying at home, I got to serve in my church, which is great. I got to study the Bible. I got to meet Melly, which is the best part of it all, right?
Yeah.
And I just think how my life, certainly would have been different if that hadn't happened. You see, like we can have a good plan with a good goal and a good motive for all of it, and then God just say, you know what? I'm not going to do that. And it can hurt when that good plan that we have isn't accomplished by God. And God says, that's not my plan. But when we look back, I think a lot of times we can see how God was working everything out to write his story in an even greater and an even better way. And that's exactly what's happened. By Reuben's plan falling apart, we see how God got Joseph right where he needed him to be to bring about good for so many people. So Reuben would see his plan get destroyed, and he couldn't see how God was going to continue to write this story for his glory. So if we're in despair, we can remember our plans fall apart. God's got his plan. And God's going to accomplish his plan. That's good. So we see that in Judah's reaction. The brothers continue, verse 31. They take the robe, they slaughter the goat, they dip it in the blood, they sin the robe of the many colors and brought it to their father. Now this is kind of ironic. You remember Jacob and Esau? Remember how Jacob tricked Esau? What did Jacob do? Jacob killed a goat, slaughtered it. What did he do with the skins? He put the skins of the goat on himself, put his brother's clothes on so that he could trick and deceive his father. Now the brothers are doing the same thing the dad did. Killing a goat, dipping Joseph's clothes in it to deceive their father. This is what they tell him. They sent the robe, verse 32, of many colors, brought to the father and said, this we have found. Please identify whether it's, look at this word, your son's robe or not. Your son's. It's their brother. But you see how they're distancing themselves. Tell us, not is this our brothers, is this your son's robe or not? So they don't exactly quite lie to him, but they set it up where it can be deceptive and let Jacob come to his own conclusions. Jacob looks at it and says, it is my son's robe. A fierce animal has devoured him. Joseph is without a doubt torn to pieces. And so he had understood what it had all come out to be. We see their callousness in all of it. We see the envy, the jealousy that led to all this. Jacob is crushed, tears his garment, verse 34, puts sackcloth on his loins, mourned for many days. All of his sons and daughters rose up to try to comfort him. Dad, cheer up. Come on, Dad's going to be okay. We have the 10 of us. He said, he refused to be comforted, said, no, I shall go down to Sheol to my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. So Jacob is at this point of absolute despair. I don't want to live. And the brothers were willing to do this. They saw how Reuben had been affected. Now they're willing to put their 108-year-old dad through all of this by their deception because they were jealous of Joseph's dream. They wanted to make sure that dream does not come true, that they would sell him off. Jacob, I'm sure he was imperfect. He played favorites, but he certainly didn't deserve quite this. So the brothers are deceitfully tricky, and yet in all of this deceit, in this despair, in all of this trickery, God is accomplishing his plan. Verse 36. Yet God's accomplishing his plan. Meanwhile, the Midianites had sold Joseph in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard. So Potiphar's role was he seemed to be a very high official, very close to Pharaoh. And it seemed like he was over the prison of political prisoners. And so he could help and he was very close, very trusted throughout. And yet, you think about everything that's going on. Deception, envy, self-interest, callousness. And yet God takes Joseph from where he is in Canaan, puts him right in Egypt, really only one step away from Pharaoh himself. And we'll see how the rest of the story works out, that God works everything out together for his good plan. I don't know what challenging situation or circumstances that you feel like you're in now, but we can have hope based on this truth. God is accomplishing his plan. In the mess of life, God can bring good from the situation. That God was continuing to write the story in the way that he had. And I ask ourselves, what would Joseph have thought? Certainly Joseph would have been scared. He would have been upset. He would have known that this is a day he would never forget, a day he would have nightmares about. But yet, we can have this mindset that Joseph had at the very end of the story when he'd look at the end of his life and say, yeah, my brothers, you meant that for evil, but God meant that for much good. And we can have that mindset too. God, when we're in really bad stuff, I may not like it. And it may not be fun. And I may not want it, and I may not understand it, but I can hold to this truth that God's going to accomplish his good plan through it, that God is up to something. There's nothing to like about being a slave. Nothing to like about being taken from your family. Nothing to like about going down to Egypt, but God was up to something, and I believe God's up to something in your life. And in the middle of your mess and your challenges and your trials, God's up to something new. And as you go through, you're becoming more like Jesus, that God's going to use your situation and your trials to change you from within, setting up the stage for what God has next for you to accomplish. So when we're in the pit, we have to remind ourselves that God is still writing his story. And not look at the despair, but try and remember that God's pen is still writing his story through you. Joseph is lifted from the pit, and he brings about the salvation of many. It's a picture and it's a foreshadowing of the one Jesus who would be rejected by his brothers. He would be thrown into not a pit but a grave, and then he would be taken out of it, and he would walk out of it alive so that he could bring about the salvation of many. Joseph and Jesus in many ways are mirror images of each other, but Jesus to such a greater extent. Jesus was raised so that you could have life. So we can trust that no matter when we go through the hard stuff, that when we know Jesus, then we know God's going to use all situations for his good. He's going to make us more like Jesus. He's going to make us more Christ-like, and God can continue to write his story through us. So when we're treated wrongly, we can have hope. When we feel envious of others, we can try and reject through the power of the Spirit, and we can follow Jesus. So if you've never taken that step to follow Jesus and to trust in his perfect life, his death on the cross for our sin, his resurrection from the grave so that we can be made right with him, we'd love to talk to you about what that looks like to follow Jesus. And for those of us who are, we can hold on to this hope that Joseph had, that no matter what we go through, God's up to something good. All right, let's pray. God, we do thank you for your word. We thank you for Joseph's life and how it can instruct us thousands and thousands of years later. May we take hope and inspiration from it. And may you use everything in this life that we go through to make us more like your son, Jesus. So in your name I pray. Amen.